The coffee was still warm in Dr. Rebecca Walsh's cup when the world changed forever. She sat in her small lab at the International Space Research Center, studying bacterial samples from Mars when every screen in the building suddenly went black. Then came the voice that would haunt humanity's dreams for the next 3 days. "People of Earth," the voice spoke in perfect English, though something about its tone felt wrong, mechanical. "We are Ambassador Krell of the Galactic Dominion. Your planet has been selected for immediate evacuation." Rebecca dropped her coffee cup. The ceramic shattered on the floor, but she barely noticed. Around the world, similar scenes played out as the same message broadcasted on every television, radio, and digital device simultaneously. The alien's image appeared on screen, tall, thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were completely black, showing no emotion as it delivered humanity's death sentence. "You have 72 hours to prepare for relocation. Transport ships will arrive to move your population to designated worlds where your species may continue to exist under Dominion protection." Rebecca's hands shook as she reached for her phone to call her daughter, but the alien continued speaking, freezing her in place. "Do not consider resistance. Your species lacks the technology to oppose us. We have monitored your civilization for 300 of your years. You are violent, unpredictable, and primitive. However, the Dominion believes in mercy for lesser species. Accept this gift of continued existence." The message explained that Earth sat at something called a hyperspace junction, a critical point needed for the Dominion's war against an enemy called the Void Swarm. 12 advanced alien civilizations had united to fight this threat, and they needed Earth's location more than they needed Earth's people. Your cooperation will be remembered favorably. Resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your world. You have 72 hours. The transmission ended, leaving billions of humans staring at blank screens. Within minutes, every government on Earth was in emergency session. Rebecca found herself pulled into a hastily organized video conference with world leaders and scientists. The room buzzed with panic and despair. Some politicians demanded immediate surrender while others called for a hopeless military response. "Can't fight them," General Patricia Hayes said, her voice tight with stress. "If they've been watching us for 3 centuries, they know everything about our capabilities. They probably have weapons we can't even imagine." Dr. Robert Kim, Earth's top diplomat, looked exhausted already. "The question isn't whether we can fight. The question is whether we have any choice but to try. They're talking about relocating 8 billion people to unknown worlds under alien control. That's not survival. That's slavery." Rebecca listened to the arguments flying back and forth. Fear dominated every conversation. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe, but in their wildest nightmares, first contact had never looked like this. Captain David Torres joined the conference from his military base. His dark eyes were calm despite the chaos around him. "What do we actually know about this void swarm they mentioned? If they need Earth for some kind of war, maybe we should understand what we're dealing with." "It doesn't matter what we understand," Dr. Kim replied. "We're ants being asked to move so giants can build a highway." But Rebecca found herself thinking about Torres's question. As a scientist, her mind automatically began analyzing the little information they'd been given. "Wait," she said, interrupting the political discussion. "They said they've been fighting this void swarm for how long? Did anyone else catch that detail?" The room fell quiet for a moment. Someone replayed the message, and they listened more carefully this time. Ambassador Krell had mentioned that the Dominion had been at war for over 2 centuries. 200 years, Torres said slowly. "That's a long time to fight any enemy, even for civilizations that can travel between stars." "Exactly," Rebecca said, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "If 12 advanced civilizations have been fighting this void swarm for 2 centuries, and they still need to evacuate entire worlds, what does that tell us about how the war is going?" The room went silent as the implications sank in. The mighty Galactic Dominion wasn't winning their war. They might even be losing it. Dr. Kim leaned forward. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Rebecca felt a crazy idea forming in her mind. I'm suggesting that maybe we're looking at this wrong. They called us primitive and violent, but they're the ones who've been losing a war for 2 centuries. Maybe being primitive and violent isn't such a disadvantage after all. General Hayes shook her head. That's insane. We barely have spacecraft that can reach our own moon reliably. What could we possibly offer civilizations that travel between galaxies? I don't know yet, Rebecca admitted. But I know that in nature, sometimes the smallest, most overlooked creatures find ways to survive that the big, powerful ones miss. Maybe it's time we stopped thinking of ourselves as helpless victims and started thinking like scientists. Over the next 24 hours, similar conversations began happening across the globe. Humanity's initial terror was slowly being replaced by something else. Curiosity mixed with stubborn determination. The same traits that had helped humans survive ice ages, plagues, and wars were awakening in response to this ultimate threat. Military leaders began studying the few details about Dominion technology they could gather from the broadcast. Scientists analyzed every word of the alien message for clues about their enemies and their capabilities. Engineers started sketching impossible plans for weapons that might work against beings who could cross galaxies. By the second day, something remarkable was happening. Instead of preparing for evacuation or surrender, humanity was preparing to do what it did best: find a way to survive through cleverness, stubbornness, and the willingness to try crazy ideas that nobody else would consider. Rebecca found herself appointed to lead a team of Earth's brightest minds. Their mission was simple and impossible: find a way for humanity to be useful enough to the galactic dominion that Earth wouldn't need to be evacuated. As she looked around the room at physicists, military strategists, and engineers all working frantically on projects that shouldn't be possible, Rebecca allowed herself a small smile. Ambassador Krell had called humans violent, unpredictable, and primitive. Maybe it was time to show the galaxy that sometimes those were exactly the qualities needed to solve impossible problems. The smell of burned electronics filled the makeshift command center as Dr. Alex Chen stared at his 5th computer that had crashed while processing Dominion data. Sleep had become a luxury none of them could afford with less than 48 hours remaining before the alien deadline. "This is impossible," muttered Colonel Maria Santos, throwing down a tablet in frustration. "Look at these energy readings from their weapons. A single Dominion destroyer could vaporize our entire Pacific fleet without breaking stride." Rebecca. Walsh looked up from her own stack of alien technical specifications. Dark circles ringed her eyes, but her mind remained sharp. "Maria, you're thinking about this wrong. Stop looking at what we can't do and start looking at what they can't do." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, pushing away from his computer. The young physicist had been trying to understand Dominion propulsion systems for the past 18 hours. "Look at this." Rebecca pulled up a holographic display showing battle formations from the Dominion's war records. Every engagement follows the same pattern: massive ships arranged in perfect geometric formations. Overwhelming firepower applied in direct frontal assault. "It's boring." Colonel Santos raised an eyebrow. "Boring?" "Predictable," Rebecca corrected. "Look at these tactical reports. For 200 years, 12 different alien civilizations have been throwing the same solutions at the Void Swarm. More ships, bigger guns, stronger shields, and for 200 years they've been losing ground." David Torres had been quiet during most of the discussion, but now he spoke up. "In military academy, they taught us that when conventional tactics fail repeatedly, you need unconventional thinking." "Exactly," Rebecca said, highlighting sections of the Dominion data. "According to these reports, the Void Swarm feeds on directed energy. Every time the Dominion hits them with plasma cannons or laser arrays, the enemy gets stronger. But look at this note buried in the tactical analysis." She pointed to a small entry in the corner of one report. Alex squinted to read the translation. "Physical projectiles show limited effectiveness, but do not appear to strengthen enemy forces?" "Limited effectiveness because they're not using enough of them," Rebecca said, excitement building in her voice. "The Dominion dismissed kinetic weapons as primitive. But what if primitive is exactly what we need?" Dr. Robert Kim joined the conversation via video link from his meeting with world leaders. "Rebecca, I need something concrete to tell them." Half the governments want to surrender immediately. The other half want to launch every nuclear weapon we have at empty space just to feel like we're fighting back. Give me 12 more hours, Rebecca said. I think we might have something. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tom Bradley, a video game designer who'd been recruited for his knowledge of tactical simulations, was playing around with battle scenarios when he made a connection. Hey, look at this, he called out to the exhausted team. I've been running the Dominion's battle data through different game engines. Every single one of their victories follows patterns from real-time strategy games. Build big units, group them together, attack in waves. But you know what beats that? Strategy every time in competitive gaming? What? Alex asked, not really expecting a useful answer from someone whose expertise came from entertainment software. Swarm tactics. Small, fast units that split up, hit different targets simultaneously and don't fight fair. Like wolves hunting a buffalo. The room fell silent. Rebecca stared at the tactical display Tom had created, showing dozens of small human ships surrounding and harassing a single large alien vessel. It looked chaotic, unorganized, and absolutely nothing like proper military doctrine. That's completely insane, Colonel Santos said slowly. No military force in history has ever. No human military force, Torres corrected. But what about animal pack hunting? What about guerrilla warfare? What about every time in history that a smaller, weaker force defeated a larger, stronger one? Over the next several hours, the team dove deeper into human military history, looking for patterns the Dominion had never encountered. They studied wolfpack behavior, ancient Celtic battle tactics, and modern insurgency strategies. What emerged was a picture of warfare completely alien to alien thinking. The Dominion species all evolved as prey animals, Dr. Walsh realized, reading through xenobiological profiles. Look at their physical characteristics. The Malari have eyes on the sides of their heads like rabbits. The Centaurians have hard shells like turtles. Even their predator species hunt alone or in small, organized groups. But humans evolved. As pack hunters, Torres said, understanding where she was going. We're persistence predators. We don't just kill our prey, we exhaust it, confuse it, and coordinate attacks from multiple directions until it can't fight back. Alex looked up from his calculations. I've been running simulations based on what we know about void swarm behavior. Their hive mind gives them incredible coordination, but it also makes them predictable. They respond to threats in logical, efficient ways. But what happens when the threats aren't logical? Chaos theory, Rebecca whispered. Small, random changes creating massive, unpredictable results. By the time they contacted Ambassador Krell, their proposal was ready. The alien's four-armed form appeared on screen with obvious irritation at being contacted by what he considered livestock. What is the purpose of this communication, humans? You have less than 24 hours to prepare for evacuation. Dr. Kim, looking more confident than he felt, smiled at the alien. Ambassador, we've reviewed your tactical data on the Void Swarm conflict. We'd like to offer our assistance. The silence that followed lasted nearly 30 seconds. When Krell finally spoke, his mechanical voice carried what might have been amusement. Your assistance. A species that has not achieved faster-than-light travel wishes to assist civilizations that have ruled the galaxy for millennia. Yes, Rebecca said, stepping into view. According to your own data, those civilizations have been losing this war for 2 centuries. Maybe it's time to try something different. And what exactly do you primitive creatures propose to do that the combined might of the Dominion cannot accomplish? Torres moved to the display, showing their tactical simulations. We propose to show you how wolves hunt buffalo, Ambassador. We propose to teach you chaos. For the first time since first contact, Ambassador Krell's emotionless expression flickered with something that might have been interest. The fate of humanity hung in the balance as an alien commander considered whether the galaxy's most violent, unpredictable species might actually be worth keeping alive. You have one chance, Krell said finally. Fail, and your world burns. Succeed, and we will discuss terms. As the communication ended, Rebecca looked around at her exhausted team. They'd just convinced an alien empire to let humanity try the most dangerous military experiment in galactic history. Well, she said with a tired smile, I guess now we find out if being crazy is the same thing as being brave. The abandoned mining facility on Luna had been transformed into something that would have given military historians nightmares. Engineers worked around the clock installing primitive kinetic weapons onto every available spacecraft, while tactical experts argued over battle plans that seemed to ignore every rule of civilized warfare. This is suicide, muttered Commander Lisa Park as she watched technicians weld metal slugs onto the hull of her patrol cruiser. The sleek vessel looked like it had been attacked by a scrapyard, bristling with crude projectile launchers and electromagnetic pulse generators cobbled together from spare parts. Tom Bradley, now officially titled as Tactical Innovation Specialist, despite having never served a day in any military, was explaining his latest modification to a group of skeptical pilots. The beauty of this system is its complete unpredictability. These random trajectory generators will make your flight path impossible to calculate, even for you. That's what worries me, Lisa replied. How do I hit anything if I don't know where I'm going? You don't aim for specific targets, Colonel Santos explained, joining the conversation. You aim for general chaos. The Void Swarm thinks in patterns, in logical responses to logical threats. We're going to give them something they've never seen before. Complete tactical insanity. The Dominion had reluctantly provided humanity with detailed intelligence about their enemy. The Void Swarm was a hive mind composed of billions of interconnected dark matter entities. They absorbed energy weapons and adapted to conventional tactics with frightening efficiency. But the alien data also revealed something interesting. The swarm struggled against truly random, chaotic attacks. Dr. Alex Chen had spent days analyzing Void Swarm behavioral patterns when he made a crucial discovery. Look at this, he said, calling the team over to his workspace. Every time the Dominion tried unpredictable tactics, they had limited success. But then they'd return to conventional formations because unpredictability felt wrong to their organized minds. Rebecca examined the data. It's like they can't help themselves. They win a battle using chaos, then immediately go back to orderly formations for the next engagement. Exactly, Alex said. But humans are naturally chaotic. We don't need to fight our instincts to be unpredictable. We need to fight our training, to be organized. This revelation had led to the most unconventional military doctrine in history. Human fighters would operate in something called managed chaos. Each pilot would have general objectives but complete freedom in how to achieve them. Coordination would happen through instinct and improvisation rather than rigid command structures. It's like jazz music, Tom explained to a group of confused alien observers who had come to witness human preparations. Everyone knows the general melody, but they improvise their individual parts. It sounds like chaos, but it creates something beautiful. The aliens looked skeptical. Ambassador Krell examined the human modifications with obvious distaste. These weapons are crude. These tactics are barbaric. Your ships look like they were designed by children playing with scrap metal. Sometimes children playing with scrap metal solve problems that engineers with advanced degrees can't figure out, Rebecca replied diplomatically. The real test of human ingenuity came in designing weapons that could hurt the Void Swarm without feeding it energy. Traditional kinetic weapons were too slow and predictable, but Alex had developed something he called kinetic chaos rounds. Instead of firing single projectiles at specific targets, we fire thousands of small fragments in seemingly random patterns, he explained to the mixed human-alien engineering team. But the randomness is actually carefully calculated chaos. The fragments will interact with each other in flight, creating unpredictable collision patterns that even we can't predict exactly. The Dominion engineers were horrified. How can you target enemy formations if you cannot predict where your weapons will hit? We don't target formations, Torres said. We target space. Lots of space. The swarm has to be somewhere in that space, and chaotic projectiles will find them. While weapons were being developed, Colonel Santos was training pilots in tactics that seemed to violate every principle of military science. Formations were loose and constantly changing. Communication was kept to a minimum to prevent predictable patterns. Pilots were encouraged to make impulsive decisions and act on instinct. Forget everything you learned in flight school, she told her trainees. Forget formation flying, forget coordinated attacks, forget following orders. Your new mission is to be as unpredictable as possible while still generally moving in the direction of the enemy. The training exercises looked like absolute chaos to outside observers. Human ships scattered in all directions, fired weapons, seemingly at random, and appeared to be attacking each other as often as they attacked designated targets. But somehow, they were achieving their objectives. "I don't understand how this works," admitted Captain Morris of the Dominion observation team. "Your pilots appear to be completely undisciplined, yet they are eliminating target drones more efficiently than our best fighter squadrons. That's because our pilots aren't thinking like pilots," Tom explained. "They're thinking like predators, like wolves, like humans." The strangest part of the human approach was their attitude toward casualties. While Dominion forces tried to minimize losses through careful planning and overwhelming firepower, humans planned for acceptable losses as part of their tactical advantage. "Some of our ships will be destroyed," Torres explained matter-of-factly to the shocked alien observers. "Some of our pilots will die, but each sacrifice will create more chaos, more unpredictability. The enemy will waste resources trying to understand patterns that don't exist. This is barbaric," Krell responded. "Civilized warfare seeks to minimize casualties through superior strategy and technology. Civilized warfare has been losing to the Void Swarm for 2 centuries, Rebecca pointed out. "Maybe it's time to try barbaric warfare." The final element of human strategy was perhaps the most alien concept of all: the deliberate use of failure as a tactical weapon. Human ships would pretend to be damaged, retreat in apparent panic, then turn and attack when the enemy followed. They would appear to make mistakes that revealed weaknesses, then exploit those apparent weaknesses as traps. "Deception in warfare is not unknown," Captain Morris admitted. "But your species takes it to extremes we find disturbing. You lie to yourselves as much as to your enemies. The best lies are the ones even the liar believes," Lisa Park said with a grin that made the aliens uncomfortable. "If we don't know what we're really planning, how can the enemy figure it out?" As the human fleet prepared for its first engagement with the Void Swarm, the contrast between human and alien approaches became stark. Dominion ships maintained perfect formations with every system operating at peak efficiency. Human ships looked like controlled disasters, with jerry-rigged weapons, improvised armor, and pilots who seemed more interested in causing chaos than following orders. "This will either be the greatest military innovation in galactic history," Ambassador Krell observed, "or the most spectacular military disaster ever recorded." Rebecca looked at the strange, chaotic fleet humanity had assembled and felt a fierce pride in her species. They might be primitive by galactic standards, but they were about to show the universe that sometimes being primitive meant being clever in ways that advanced civilizations had forgotten. "Either way," she said, "it's going to be the most human thing the galaxy has ever seen." The Nexus system looked peaceful from a distance, 3 ordinary stars spinning around each other in an ancient dance. But as the combined human Dominion fleet dropped out of hyperspace, the true scope of the threat became clear. Dark tendrils of something that wasn't quite matter and wasn't quite energy stretched between the planets like infected veins. "Sweet Mother of God," whispered pilot Jenny Wu as her instruments tried and failed to make sense of what they were seeing. "That's not ships. That's not technology. That's something alive." The Void Swarm had consumed 2 of the system's planets completely. Where rocky worlds should have existed, there were now pulsing masses of dark energy that seemed to bend space around themselves. Smaller tendrils reached out toward the remaining inhabited world like grasping fingers. Ambassador Krell's voice came over the communication channel, tight with something that might have been fear. "The swarm tendril is larger than our intelligence indicated. Perhaps we should withdraw and bring larger forces." "Larger forces to do what?" David Torres asked from the bridge of the lead human vessel, a converted cargo hauler that looked like it had been put together by particularly violent children. "Throw more energy weapons at something that eats energy. Bring more organized fleets to fight something that adapts to organization." The human ships were already spreading out in patterns that made no sense to traditional military thinking. Instead of forming up in battle lines or attack formations, they scattered like startled birds, each vessel heading in a seemingly random direction. Human fleet, establish proper formation for engagement, ordered Captain Morris from the Dominion. Command ship. Concentrate your firepower for maximum effectiveness. Negative, Torres replied cheerfully. We're going to try something different. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations, though most alien strategists would never truly understand it. The human ships didn't attack the void swarm so much as they began to annoy it. Jenny Wu's fighter dove toward one of the dark tendrils, firing a burst of kinetic rounds that seemed to scatter randomly. The projectiles bounced off each other in flight, creating a chaotic spray pattern that hit the alien entity from dozens of unexpected angles simultaneously. The void swarm reacted instantly, sending out a pulse of dark energy to destroy the attacking ship. But Jenny had already changed course in a way that violated every principle of physics she'd learned in flight school, using a gravitational slingshot around a piece of space debris to fling herself in a completely different direction. This is impossible, muttered the Dominion tactical officer watching the engagement. She should have been vaporized. How did she know to change course at that exact moment? She didn't know. Tom Bradley explained from his position as human tactical coordinator. She was just following her training to be unpredictable. The course change was random, but it wasn't entirely random. While no single human pilot could predict exactly where they would be at any given moment, the combined effect of dozens of fighters following chaotic patterns created something unprecedented. A coordinated attack that even the attackers couldn't fully anticipate. The void swarm's hive mind began to show signs of confusion. It sent energy pulses toward where the human ships should logically be, only to find empty space. It tried to adapt to human tactics, but there were no consistent tactics to adapt to. Look at the swarm's response patterns, Alex Chen called out from his sensor station. It's trying to learn from our attacks, but every ship is doing something completely different. It can't form a coherent response. The battle intensified as more human ships joined the chaotic assault. Lisa Park led a group of fighters in what could generously be called a formation. If formations were allowed to constantly change shape, split apart, and reform in different configurations every few seconds. Red Squadron, execute pattern zebra, she called out, which was human code for do whatever feels right but try to end up roughly in this general area. The results were beautiful and terrifying. Human ships wove through the void swarm's defenses like schools of fish, never where the enemy expected, always attacking from angles that shouldn't exist. They used gravitational fields, electromagnetic pulses, and pure kinetic energy in combinations that defied tactical logic. But the human approach came with a cost. The Dominion watched in horror as human ships deliberately flew into dangerous positions, sacrificing themselves to create openings for other vessels. Each loss seemed random and unnecessary to alien observers. This is madness, Captain Morris said as another human fighter vanished in a burst of dark energy. They are throwing away their lives for no strategic gain. No gain you can see, Colonel Santos corrected from the command ship. Watch what happens next. The destroyed fighter had been carrying something the Dominion had never seen before, a kinetic mine that activated only when its ship was destroyed. As the void swarm moved to consume the wreckage, the mine exploded into thousands of fragments that ricocheted through the enemy formation in a pattern of pure chaos. The fragments didn't do massive damage individually, but they created something more valuable than destruction: confusion. The swarm's hive mind tried to track thousands of tiny projectiles bouncing unpredictably through space, overloading its ability to focus on the larger battle. Every sacrifice creates an opportunity, Torres explained as more human ships threw themselves into seemingly suicidal attacks. We're not just fighting the enemy. We're teaching it that trying to understand us is a mistake. The turning point came when the void swarm made a critical error. Frustrated by its inability to predict human movements, it began to mass its forces for an overwhelming strike against the human fleet. From the alien perspective, this was logical. Concentrate power to destroy the chaotic attackers. But massing its forces meant the swarm became predictable for the first time in the battle. The moment the alien entity began moving its tendrils, into attack formation. Every human ship in the system seemed to know exactly where to strike. Now! Torres called out, and suddenly the chaotic human fleet wasn't chaotic anymore. Every ship that had been flying in random patterns converged on the massed enemy formation from dozens of different directions simultaneously. The attack looked like a miracle of coordination to the watching Dominion forces. But it wasn't coordination in any traditional sense. It was predator instinct. Every human pilot had been waiting for the moment when their prey would expose itself. And when that moment came, they all responded with the same hunting instinct their species had developed over millions of years. Kinetic rounds, electromagnetic, pulses, and improvised weapons struck the concentrated swarm from every possible angle. The entity tried to disperse, but it was too late. The human attack had been timed perfectly for the moment of maximum vulnerability. The void swarm tendril began to collapse. Its dark energy flickered and twisted as the hive mind lost cohesion. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a void swarm force was not just defeated, it was completely destroyed. In the aftermath, as human ships regrouped and damage reports came in, the Dominion fleet sat in stunned silence. They had just witnessed something that shouldn't have been possible. A primitive species using crude weapons and insane tactics had achieved what 12 advanced civilizations couldn't accomplish in 2 centuries of warfare. How? Was all Ambassador Krell could manage to say. Torres looked at the dissipating remains of the enemy force and smiled. We stopped trying to fight like you and started fighting like us. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to be too stupid to know it's impossible. The battle was over, but its implications were just beginning. Humanity had proven that their chaotic, unpredictable nature wasn't a weakness to be corrected. It was a weapon the galaxy desperately needed. 3 weeks after the Battle of Nexus System, Rebecca Walsh found herself in the strangest diplomatic meeting in human history. The conference room aboard the Dominion flagship was designed for species much larger than humans, forcing her to sit on what amounted to a child's booster seat while negotiating humanity's place in galactic civilization. The Mallory Collective wishes to formally apologize for suggesting your species should be relocated, announced Ambassador Vell through his translation device. The rabbit-like alien's ears twitched nervously as he spoke. We were unaware that your primitive appearance concealed such effective tactical capabilities. Dr. Robert Kim, now bearing the title of Earth's first galactic ambassador, maintained his diplomatic composure despite the backhanded nature of the apology. We appreciate the collective's revised position on humanity's potential contributions to galactic security. Around the massive table, representatives from 12 alien civilizations were grappling with a reality none of them had expected. The violent, chaotic little species from the third planet of an unremarkable star system had just revolutionized galactic warfare in a single afternoon. The tactical recordings from Nexus System have been analyzed by our best military minds, Captain Morris reported. We estimate that human techniques could improve Dominion combat effectiveness by 300% minimum. The Zentorian War College is requesting immediate access to human tactical doctrine. Rebecca suppressed a smile. 3 weeks ago, these same aliens had been preparing to evacuate Earth because humans were too primitive to deserve their planet. Now they were begging to learn human military secrets. We're willing to share our tactical innovations, Kim said carefully. But any military alliance must be between equals, not between masters and subjects. The room erupted in what passed for alien discussion. Several species objected to treating humans as equals, while others argued that results spoke louder than age or technology level. The debate might have continued for hours if not for an urgent communication that silenced everyone. Dominion command to all vessels, came the panicked voice over the intercom. We're receiving reports from the Outer Rim. 3 more void swarm incursions detected. They're moving faster than ever before and they're targeting military installations specifically. Ambassador Krell's 4 arms gestured in what Rebecca had learned was their species' equivalent of swearing. The swarm is adapting. Our victory at Nexus must have taught them to prioritize military threats. Actually, Tom Bradley said, looking up from his tactical analysis pad, I think we might have done something else. Something much more interesting. All attention focused on the former video game designer who had somehow become humanity's expert on void swarm behavior. Look at these attack patterns. The swarm isn't just moving faster, it's moving differently. Less coordinated, more erratic. I think we broke something in their hive mind. Alex Chen joined the discussion, excitement building in his voice. Tom's right. The swarm's response to chaos wasn't just tactical confusion, it was cognitive damage. We didn't just defeat them, we gave them the equivalent of a mental breakdown. Explain, Krell demanded. Rebecca leaned forward, her scientific mind racing through the implications. The void swarm operates as a single consciousness across billions of individual entities. That kind of mental network would be incredibly efficient, but also incredibly vulnerable to the right kind of disruption. Our chaotic tactics didn't just confuse their strategy. They literally gave the hive mind a headache. A headache that's apparently making them more aggressive and less rational in their remaining attacks, Torres added grimly. Which means we need to deal with them quickly before they adapt or recover. The alien representatives looked at each other with what Rebecca was learning to recognize as barely controlled panic. Their 2-century war against the void swarm had been a slow, grinding stalemate. Now the enemy was becoming more dangerous and unpredictable. The Dominion, formally, requests Earth's immediate assistance in coordinating our response to these new incursions, Krell announced. We are prepared to offer full membership in the Galactic Dominion, along with access to all military and civilian technologies. Kim glanced at Rebecca and Torres before responding. We accept, with conditions. Human tactical doctrine will be integrated into all Dominion forces, but under human leadership for all void swarm engagements. Our methods only work if your people can learn to think like us. The negotiations that followed would reshape galactic civilization. Humanity's chaotic, improvisational approach to warfare began spreading through alien military academies. Species that had spent millennia perfecting rigid, disciplined tactics were suddenly trying to teach their soldiers to be unpredictable and creative. The results were mixed, but promising. The naturally cautious Malari struggled with aggressive tactics, but excelled at creating diversionary chaos. The heavily armored Zentarians discovered that their defensive strategies worked brilliantly when combined with human-style hit-and-run attacks. It's like teaching classical musicians to play jazz, Lisa Park observed while training a mixed squadron of human and alien pilots. Some get it naturally, others fight it every step of the way, but when it clicks, the results are beautiful. Within months, joint human-alien strike forces were engaging void swarm incursions across the galaxy. The enemy's damaged hive mind struggled to cope with the spread of chaotic tactics, making critical errors that allowed for decisive victories. But humanity's greatest contribution to the galactic war effort wasn't just tactical innovation, it was psychological transformation. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion forces were winning decisively, and morale across the galaxy was soaring. The psychological impact cannot be overstated, reported Dr. Zena, the Dominion's chief xenopsychologist. For 200 years, our species have fought with the grim determination of those who expect to lose. Humans brought something we had forgotten existed, the absolute certainty that any problem can be solved if you're willing to be creative enough. Rebecca found this assessment both flattering and slightly terrifying. Humanity's casual confidence in the face of impossible odds was apparently as alien to the rest of the galaxy as their tactical innovations. The war reached a turning point 6 months after the Nexus system battle. A massive void swarm concentration was detected moving toward the galactic core, threatening the Dominion's most important worlds. Traditional tactics would have required the evacuation of entire star systems. Instead, humanity proposed something that horrified the alien leadership: a direct assault on the swarm's central mass, using every ship the Dominion could muster, coordinated using pure human chaos doctrine. This is suicide on a galactic scale, protested General Thane of the Zentarian Defense Force. You're proposing to throw our entire fleet into a chaotic melee with an enemy that vastly outnumbers us. Exactly, Torres replied with a grin that made the aliens uncomfortable. They'll never expect it because it's completely insane, which is exactly why it's going to work. The final battle took place in the Andromeda Junction, where 3 hyperspace routes converged. The human-led Dominion fleet didn't approach in battle formation. They approached like a swarm themselves, thousands of ships moving in patterns. That seemed random, but followed the deep mathematical principles of controlled chaos that human scientists had developed. The Void Swarm's response was everything humanity had hoped for. The damaged hive mind tried to coordinate its defenses but found itself facing attacks from directions that constantly shifted and changed. Where it concentrated forces, the human-led fleet would suddenly scatter. Where it spread out to cover more area, coordinated strikes would hit its weakest points. "It's like watching a predator hunt," observed Captain Morris, finally beginning to understand human tactics after months of study. You don't just attack your prey, you exhaust it, confuse it, and break its will to fight before you go for the kill. The battle raged for 18 hours, with ships from dozens of species fighting in perfect chaos under human coordination. When the final Void Swarm entity was destroyed, the galaxy fell silent. After 2 centuries of war, peace had been achieved. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the simple human belief that any enemy could be defeated if you were crazy enough to try. In the aftermath, as the combined fleet regrouped and began the long journey home, Rebecca received a message that would change everything once again. It came from deep space, transmitted on frequencies that shouldn't exist, in mathematics that hurt to look at directly. "Greetings, young chaos makers," the message began, translated into English by computers that struggled with concepts that had no words in any known language. "We are what your enemy was fleeing from. We have watched your victory with great interest." The message explained that the Void Swarm had been refugees, not conquerors. They had been running from something even worse, entities from outside, normal space-time that consumed not just matter and energy, but reality itself. "Your species has demonstrated capabilities we did not know existed in this dimension," the message continued. "Your ability to create order from chaos and meaning, from madness, may be exactly what is needed for the trials ahead." Torres looked at the readout and started laughing. "Let me guess, something even scarier than the Void Swarm is coming, and they want our help dealing with it?" Rebecca nodded, feeling a familiar mixture of terror and excitement. "Apparently, our reputation for solving impossible problems has spread beyond our own dimension." Dr. Kim sighed and began drafting humanity's response. They had just finished saving the galaxy, and now they were being asked to save reality itself. It was exactly the kind of impossible, dangerous, completely insane challenge that humans specialized in. "Well," Rebecca said, looking out at the stars that humanity had helped make safe again, "I suppose we should send back our standard human response to impossible threats." "Which is?" Ambassador Krell asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Rebecca smiled with the confidence that had carried humanity from a small planet to the center of galactic civilization in less than a year. "Thank you for the opportunity. When do we start?" As news of the new threat spread through the fleet, alien crews watched in amazement as human personnel began to show excitement rather than fear. The species that had once been scheduled for evacuation as primitive and violent was now eagerly preparing to defend reality itself against enemies that existed outside the normal universe. The galaxy had threatened Earth and received a thank you in return. Now existence itself was under threat, and humanity's response was exactly what the cosmos had learned to expect from the small, chaotic, impossible species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. They were ready to get to work.